Good morning. I'm just waiting for my guest to come and we're going to do a little interview about mold. There she is. There we go.
Holy shit. Okay.
This is already so fun and I haven't even hit record. I can edit this out, so just tell me when you're ready and we'll go three, two, one.
Oh, okay. I guess I'm ready. I don't know. Does anything look off that I should move?
No, you look fantastic and I love the products.
Thanks.
Okay. All right, so record. Three,
Okay.
two.
2, 1. It's happening.
It's happening. Good afternoon. Oh my gosh, it's 111 here.
It's
Good
911 here.
I think that's a sign, honestly.
Don't freak out. Everything's fine.
So, good afternoon if you're on the East Coast, if you're in Alaska or in Hawaii, good morning. You're getting poked by Laura or you're about to. So if I don't have your consent or permission to get poked, then get the hell out of here. I'm here with a friend today who I've been working to talk to for a while about an experience that they've been going through. I want to introduce her a little bit. Feel free to interrupt me if anything is incorrect, please. I just want to give her a little introduction and the talk, and then I'm going to let her talk and we'll take it from there. But we want to encourage questions, feedback. We're both here to open this discussion to the public. It's really part of the point of it. In fact, when I first asked, my guest is Libby, and she's got some great products with her today, which you should definitely order. Look on YouTube for her mug and her shirt, and she's got some other stuff coming. But Libby is her name. I want to start by saying that when we met to sort of go over what we were going to talk about, she sort of confessed, I don't know if that's the right word, but that's my take on it. She confessed that she's sort of sick of talking about mold. And it's been a year and a half. It's been a journey. We're going to go through it a little bit. And of course, that made me feel bad because I don't want her to be exhausted. But we got to talk a little bit about the purpose of this, and I'll let her go into that. But really, the purpose is education, because mold really is a very large issue. I think she can speak to that better than I can. And there's not a lot of help, guidance, and information out there that's readily available. Like if you Google, one of the things she mentioned yesterday is that what you're going to find is they're going to talk about histamine responses, sneezing, skin stuff that's like itchy, or I don't know, basic histamine responses. And this discussion will bear out and show that that's actually not the truth. Mold is pretty complex, and there's a lot of things that can happen that are much deeper and more disturbing and not always easy to identify. So hopefully the story today that Libby shares about her journey is going to be enlightening. And if you have questions, we want that feedback. Also, a quick trigger warning that she asked me to go over. We are going to talk about different physical symptoms, and some of these might be things that really could be about other issues. We don't want everybody on here or anybody on here to start freaking out thinking they have a mold problem. There are some things that you can ask yourself to sort of identify, is this potentially a mold problem or not? Off the top of my head, one of the things that Libby mentioned was, does it get better or does it stay the same when you leave an area? Because if there's mold somewhere, it's probably going to get better, I would imagine, if you leave. And then the other thing would be, if you live in that building with other people, are other people also experiencing illness of some sort? So I think those are two obvious things, but just a trigger warning, we are going to talk about physical things. Mold is tricky. Don't assume you have mold. This is a discussion. That's the point of talking about it. This isn't something that has a lot of transparency in the world. So that's the short intro. And then I just want to say, Libby's a really good friend of mine, one of my very best friends. I met her, I don't know, over 4 years ago on TikTok.
Getting there. Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. And we became more personal friends off of TikTok in the spring of 2023, a very memorable time for me. And in short order, from the time of spring to fall of 2023, we both kind of had this avalanche of life things happen. And we've been on this journey together, simultaneously kind of suffering and being in a land of confusion. So that's what we're going to go into.
And
um,
supporting each other.
and supporting each other. I hope so. Yeah,
Yeah, totally.
yeah, Libby's definitely been a huge support to me. I mean, honestly, I if I can just like dribble for a second about her and how we got to this place of being able to share this together is that Libby is just an incredibly generous, present, thoughtful person. And even through this illness, this mold, what do we call it? Infection, poisoning,
Yeah, all good words. Yeah.
illness. Yeah, mold infection, mold poisoning, mold illness. Even as she's been going through that, and I've been going through one of the worst times in my life. I mean, just to give an example of the kindness, like when I first got to New Mexico, I had nothing. All my possessions were gone. I was living in an empty house. And I mentioned that to her, that I was cooking eggs with chopsticks. And the next thing I know, I get in the mail like spatulas and a coffee pod. Just like cool, man. Just thoughtful and kind. And that's Libby. So um anyway, I'm happy to introduce her to you. Also, you can follow her on TikTok. Her at is at mental cramps.
Actually, it's Libby Sterling's technically, but yeah, they TikTok changed the name recently when I became a business account. So that's
Oh,
actually, but you can probably find it that way. I hope you can find it that way.
mental cramps. Yeah, I love it. And what
It's
about
still
your
in development.
I'd say the mental cramps in me are fully developed, but um what's your website? How can people find you if they want to find you
Oh,
directly?
thanks. Yeah, they can find me at mentalcramps.com or libbysterling.com. They go to the same place. But
Okay. And
yeah, for the weird stuff, the weird videos of along the journey is at Libby Sterling on TikTok. So mental cramps was taken.
okay. And we'll put all this up on my YouTube and on Patreon, so the links will be there along with some other links for mold information. So, in typing out this out, I don't know if you looked at my outline or not. It's fine if you didn't because it's really just words on a page, but I kind of realized I don't necessarily want to be the one to tell all this. I know what's interesting to me and what I find compelling, but I thought, let's see. Let me see. Let me see
I
what
could
I
give
want.
a summary, or I can,
Do it. I want you to talk. Yes.
yeah. Okay, thanks. Well, thanks for having me. I love this show. It's amazing to be a guest on a podcast. This
Yeah.
is probably my first one. So thank you. Yeah, and even though I said I'm sick of talking about mold, I guess I'll clarify that statement by saying, because I do want to share, and like I didn't go through all this just for nobody else to benefit from it. I didn't do all this internet research and personal research and personal pain and blah 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 just to shove it away and never talk about it again. So I'm really happy to share and put it out there for others if
Yeah.
it's needed. So what I was sick of was it controlling my life. And that was the case for about a year and a half after, yeah, having a renovation gone wrong, renovation performed incorrectly, that then led to creating like a petri dish incubation zone under the cabin that we were living in, my husband and I, and dogs. And it created so much mold that within, I don't know, a 2, 3 week period, it started crawling up the walls inside the cabin, in the interior walls. So it was visible, which is really, I'm grateful for the fact that it was so visible, because a lot of people, if you research this, you'll find they had no idea. Everything looked clean. They didn't smell anything. Like mold can be really tricky.
Yep.
It's not as straightforward as Google would lead you to believe.
No.
So, yeah, so our exposure time was really, as far as we know, like there's a chance that there was some minor mold in the cabin before this event. But in total, about 1 month, maybe 5 weeks of exposure while we were trying to deal with it before we moved out, and we're still both like dealing with it. My husband's, having symptoms too. Not as extreme as mine have been, but yeah, so
But you said men
it's
also tend to take longer to show symptoms, right?
that can be the case. Yeah, I mean, every individual is different, but
Right.
there is something about, and this is kind of just like anecdotal, but a lot of people will say, "Oh, it's the wife that is sick and the husband isn't," or like kids present differently. It's so much the individual. But yeah,
There's some
I think the
discussion around
symptom.
that though, the gender differences. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Um, And, also lifestyle plays into it, your past health history, genetics. It goes really deep. And so the best way to summarize is that toxic exposure is bad for everyone. um, that makes it really clear and easy, because you'll get people saying, well, oh, you were genetically predisposed, and so you're going to have a harder time. It's like that doesn't mean that it's okay. Like um, nobody should have toxic exposure of mold or anything else.
Do
So yeah.
I just want to paint the picture a little bit though, because I think for me, like, and I just say this in support of your story, like, I think the thing for me in witnessing it from so far away, because at the time that this happened, I was living in New Mexico, you were in Alaska. Eventually I got to see it a little bit up close in person because I came to Alaska. But what I remember in talking to you about this is you saying how in August or the summer of
Hmm.
2023, you were like living your best life. You were in your 30s. I mean, I think, are you still in your 30s? I don't know. It doesn't matter. You're in your 30s.
I just
You're
turned
married.
40, so yeah, end of
Yeah.
my 30s was I was
Yeah.
going
End of your
strong.
30s. You loving life. You got this really dream job on a campsite where you're not paying rent. You live in the wilderness in Alaska. You get to be outside. You get to host guests for the summer. You're playing music, which is you're a musician. You're creating art. You're an artist. You're there with your husband. Like you guys are loving life. And in a short span of that dream coming true and you guys doing this together, I think you told me that it was the middle of August. I think you said August 18th, 2023.
Yep.
You there had just been renovations done. You knew that they weren't done correctly because you have a background in this stuff, and you were like, this isn't quite right, and they were like, it's fine. August 18th, the renovations finish, rain hits, you start to notice things, and by I think you said September 13th,
8th,
8th,
or yeah,
you
it
had
was
to
that week
cancel a
in there.
trip that you had with your
Hmm.
husband. You guys were going to hit the road. You had to cancel a trip because people were going to come to take care of the camp. And the mold was so bad between the 18th to the next month, a couple weeks later, that you were like, we can't go. And I'm kind of painting a picture here for people of how quickly this can happen. If I recall correctly, it was December or January that you did a TikTok, and I will never forget it for as long as I live, of a bonfire where you were burning your musical instruments. I remember a banjo. You were
Hmm.
burning furniture, I think clothing. Like you had to burn your belongings, and you all had masks on, and you had to get out of your home. And then by the time I met you in February, you were in another cabin. You were so sick. You were half functional in your life. My words, not yours.
Hmm. Yeah,
And
that's accurate.
and within short order after that, by that spring, you had to leave. And you and your husband have been living apart now for nearly a year. And this
Yep.
is all because of mold. And that doesn't even talk about everything else that you went through. So pretty dramatic.
Yeah, that's a good summary. That's a good summary. And
Yeah.
yeah, it can happen so quickly, um, which led me to, trying to convey how this feels is hard because even for me, at first I was like, oh, mold. oh, that's not that big of a deal, right? Oh, mold, oh, it's just a little mold, and
Spray
so
it with
that's
some
an attitude
vinegar.
I had.
Yeah.
Right, spray it with something. I tried vinegar, hydrogen peroxide, like I'm doing whatever the internet tells me to do. No big deal. And then I couldn't sleep. Then my heart starts beating out of my chest all night, and my joints start, and my husband too. Our joints start like are on fire, like we just sprained every joint we have.
And when you say
Um,
your heart was beating, I mean, you're talking about tachycardia, really, right? Like a heart rate that's kind of out of
yeah, and
control.
and high blood pressure, which is, as someone with some kidney drama, I watch my blood pressure pretty closely. So yeah, just not normal things. Anxiety, I've never really been an anxious person. Just all these changes that came on so quickly, but also so kind of gradually and insidiously that I remember thinking, is this due to the mold, or is this due to just like stress? Maybe I'm just stressed. Maybe there's a lot going on. I was upset about canceling our trip, and we're really busy. Maybe that's what it is. And
Right.
this kind of and that shows like the neurological effects of mold that really are like the umbrella over everything else that we feel physically, because it's like getting into our senses and like changing tastes and smells, changing emotions, exaggerating certain emotions like anger and fear, and
Yeah, I definitely want to talk about that one a little bit later.
yeah,
I
and
just,
like reducing self-preservation. So yeah, it's weird, a
well,
lot of
and what's
weirdness.
interesting to me about that part of it when you talk about the sort of self-gaslighting, like, because like I was saying, in August, early August, you're living your best life. I mean, you and I had really started to become close just before this, like taking it off of TikTok, taking it off of comments, and being fans of each other. It's like I had gotten to know you, and you were such a positive, bright, happy person doing cool things that I admired, that inspired me. And having been a witness to it and not yet knowing you in person and not being there, right? There's like that or not asymmetrical, there's that parasocial, I don't quite know. So I can't really confirm, and I don't know anything about mold, and most people don't. So when you're telling me this stuff, I'm like, well, yeah, that makes sense that you'd be stressed. But I do remember thinking, this is such a big change. Cause like even a video of yours popped up from a couple years ago recently. And I was like, that's the Libby I remember. It's
Yeah.
like
Well,
just,
and people should know that you are the one that got me out of there ultimately. I mean, it was the first week of October, so we'd been in this for about a month, a little under a month, that we knew we had a mold problem, and we were trying to remediate ourselves, which is like not wise. Do not do that. But it was the option it was the direction we were given from the employer, so that's what we did until we couldn't anymore. um, but yeah, I remember, and it was in the morning I got a message from you. I think I had left you a message the night before, and you got back to me. I had described some of the weird symptoms, like the metallic taste and the emotional stuff, and just like the insomnia and these pains, and you said, this is an emergency, you guys need to get out of there like right now. And no one had seen it with that level of urgency yet. Everyone had said, oh, kind of like where I was, like, oh, we'll deal with it. Oh, okay, yeah, just like wipe it. Like at that time, I didn't know how deep the roots of, like, once you see visible mold on a surface, how deep the roots are inside of the porous material, like the siding inside.
yeah,
So yeah, I mean, you saved us from who knows what would have. I mean, I think we probably would have figured out eventually
yeah.
to leave, but every moment of exposure that you can avoid is going to help. So,
Well, and
yeah.
really the only reason that I had any insight, and I want to make this clear because I think this gets into something while I was doing the notes today. I was writing about how most of your typical doctors in anything, especially just your average run of the mill physician that you go to because you have a cold or a flu or whatever, they do not have training in this. They do not have understanding of it. I had a little bit. I had enough to know, here's what I knew about mold. What I knew about mold was I knew it was serious and it could really hurt people. I knew that there were different kinds of mold, some that were dangerous, some that weren't. And I definitely knew, based on the experience of the people that I had met, that most people diminish mold, that they don't really understand the depth of it, and that they don't understand that it can kill you. And I went through a couple of experiences when I was in med school adjacent to it. And I watched people go through the process of trying to get other people to take their mold seriously until they finally got pushed out of their homes or wound up in the hospital. And so I knew enough to know what I didn't know. And when you told me, because you're reminding me of the conversation, there were two things you told me that I went, everything in me went, get the F out of there. Like, one was, really three things. One was watching you decline very quickly and not understanding it and trying to understand, like, you, is this mental, emotional, or is this physical? But then when you called me that day or talked to me that day, it was when you said metallic taste and you told me you could see the mold crawling up the wall. I was like, get out. Because it's like cost benefit. Like, if I'm wrong, then okay, I'm wrong and you can go back. But if I'm right, like, yeah, potentially saving your life. I mean, not me saving it, you saving it. Like, I felt bad saying it, to be honest. I felt like I
No, that
was
was
gonna,
a good
yeah.
gamble. That was a good gamble you took, and really important because we'd had like one or two people come by the cabin to check on us, and they didn't know what they were doing either. They were taking direction from us, and at the time that they came by, 1 or 2 weeks into it, it was like, oh yeah, we're doing this, and this is our plan, and um,
Can we talk
so
about
we
the,
didn't have a lot of yeah, yeah.
I want to talk about the, like, when you say remediation for the audience, can you tell us what that means? And also, can you talk a little bit, sort of an overarching, because I know it's its own story, about what the response was? Because you were living on a camp, and so there were other people who were employing you, and this was their property. It's, I'm not trying to defame anybody, but I'm trying to get across to people. I want people to understand how difficult it can be when you have mold, that you probably are going to hear the kinds of things you heard. And I wonder if you can talk about what is remediation, and just as an overarching cap, like, what was the response you got, and how did that impact this journey for you?
Yeah, that's good because it was equally as difficult to deal with the response as it was to deal with the physical toxin. So, yeah, initially, well, I'll jump back into summer when I just a few months before this happened, I happened to meet someone who had had mold illness and had struggled with it for years and years and years. And that was the first person in my life that I remember ever dealing with mold. I mean, and she was so ill to the point that she would have to, like, if they had a Tupperware container of leftover food in their car, and she had to have him check it to make sure that didn't have any mold in it, like, because it'd been, unrefrigerated. So, like, that just stood out to me. I was like, whoa, you can't even, like, be this far away from mold, and you have a problem with it. So because of her, mold was kind of on my radar. She hadn't shared a lot about her experience, just kind of like little bits, but it was on my radar. So when
Well,
this
now you
came
probably know
up,
why she didn't share a lot.
oh yeah, I do. I understand her, and we've kept in touch. But yeah, it's uh, something she still struggles with to this day.
Yeah.
Has had to move several times and stuff. But so by the time the renovation came and I started to see this stuff coming up the walls, and at first I thought, oh, maybe it's just this window. Maybe it's because it was like fall. The temperature differential between cold and hot in certain climates can cause condensation buildup, and mold can grow there. All mold needs is moisture and food. Like, so try to control the moisture. And so I thought, oh, it's just by this one window. Maybe I'll spray it. And I used hydrogen peroxide because bleach is not a good. At first I thought, oh, spray it with bleach. Bleach is not a good thing. It
Why is
it
bleach not a good
actually
thing?
bleach will leave behind residue that can further feed the mold. It won't,
So it's
it'll kill
food.
what's on the surface. Yeah, it becomes food for the mold on porous
Yeah.
surfaces. Like it's okay on like but not the grout. The grout is of your tile is porous. So but yeah, that bleach use is a common misconception when dealing with mold. So I used hydrogen peroxide and
And that's considered
um,
remediation. I'm just trying to define that word for
well,
the audience.
yeah, I mean, remediation from start to finish would include like more of a treatment than just spraying something down like this. More of probably removing the material, like removing the drywall, removing the siding, insulation that had mold on it, and then anything around it, because there's going to be more that you can't see that was near what you could see. And I mean, remediation would include, there's all sorts of different techniques. There's the physical treatment of the item, removal of the items. There's,
And was this what
like
they
you
had
can,
asked you to do? What was it that the employers
um,
asked you to do?
they asked us, well, when we reported this, we said, look, we've found some mold because it turned out to be not just this one little window area that I first thought. I thought, oh, shoot, it's over here too. It's also over here. Okay, this is big. And then we popped the crawl space open, and that's when we saw it's like, whoa, this is like where it's all coming from.
It was like The Last of Us.
So it was like, yeah, it was very much like that. I've been watching that show too.
Oh my gosh, I
It's
love that
almost
show.
like as a therapy.
It's
It's
so good.
really, it's yeah. After you've been through mold and then you watch that show, it's kind of therapeutic and just makes you feel less alone. But yeah, I because of this woman that I had met a few months earlier, I said to the person I was reporting to, hey, I know that mold can be really serious. How bad does this have to get before we can get some professional help? Um, and it didn't go over well. This is a DIY culture, like volunteers, small nonprofit, wilderness. Like we don't, we didn't
Which,
hire
which
out
just
for
just
stuff.
side note, this is how the infestation of mold happened because they had volunteers come in to renovate and they did it improperly.
Hmm.
Right.
Yeah, and so and like not to knock that type of work, like a lot of wonderful work has been done that way
But
too.
good to know for
This is
mold.
just the risk.
Good
Yeah,
to
this is the
know.
risk that
Yeah. Yeah.
I am so full for pro DIY. Like if people
Yeah.
want to do stuff, it's just like a matter of there are risks involved, and this is one of them. So,
Right.
um, yeah, and I asked that question again, and I got the same negative response of no, we DIY here. I'm paraphrasing, but um, and and there was actually a lot of anger coming from um, the person that we reported this to, and that's not really fair to represent the organization that way, but I mention it because it made everything so much more difficult. If we could have just been open and honest about what was going on, we would have been able to work together to find a solution because it was hard for everyone. It was costly to us, like it cost us, almost all of our possessions. I'm still to this day finding stuff that I need to throw away, even after like full cleaning. Like the mold is so, um, it is really good at surviving. And another important thing to note is the mold itself is one thing, and people like, I think it's pretty common. People know about mold spores that are emitted that are, super tiny, can't see them, but they're I mean, there's some in here right now. There's some in your house right now. Their spores are everywhere. You're never going to get
Totally
away
aware.
from a certain amount in the air. Um, and but they also emit mycotoxins, which are a different nanoparticle. They're like zero point 0.3 microns, zero point 0.3, so very, very small. And they are coated with like a type of oil that makes them really sticky. So if you, and more mycotoxins are emitted during the remediation process. So when you're attacking mold, it's like a self defense mechanism. And the mycotoxins make you way more sick than the spores do. The spores, you'll get like that allergy type response. The mycotoxins
Yeah.
cross the blood-brain barrier and like lodge in your brain,
Well, and you
and do
also
damage.
said that you said this to me yesterday, which I found very interesting. And I do want to go back to the camp because you glossed over something that for the sake of my people who are listening to this, I think it's really important. But I think maybe it's better for me to speak on it as a witness versus you who is in it. But you talked about the mold being competitive and like
Right.
that molds will actually, you can have multiple infestations at once of different kinds and they will fight each other. And in
Yeah.
that fight to live, they put out this output of mycotoxins and other stuff that it's just
Yeah,
like it
I
can
had a
be like
mold
out of control.
inspector tell me that it's like a competitive, offensive thing. So, that when I was in there actively spraying with the hydrogen peroxide or white vinegar or whatever, I was releasing way more mycotoxins than would have been if I had just left it. And that's what I didn't know, and that's one of the main reasons why people say don't try to do this on your own. Unfortunately, I didn't find that information, in my first few Google searches, but that's really important for people to know is one of the reasons why, like, you bring a remediator in, they will seal off that area like airtight with plastic and tape, and then they will remediate, and air testing to verify that they got it all, and
So
all
let's talk
it's
about that for a second because I think when I'm imagining the people listening to this, I'm imagining most people are not going to know about mold. They're going to have the same kind of attitude that you had, the same kind that before I had any exposure to people who got sick that I had, like, oh, it's a little mold. You get some vinegar, you spray it, you clean it off, whatever. What, like, going back, if you were able to go back now, like what were the warning signs? What were the things that maybe you would have done differently? Because for me, one of the main things, that's why I brought these people up, is the response from the people who owned the property. And sometimes the owners are going to be you, right? It's going to be your house or whatever.
most likely,
Is
yeah.
it is very common, I think, to have the kind of response that you had. I think the unfortunate part is it was also where you lived and worked. So it made it a much more dangerous situation for you. I mean, for me on the outside, it made me angry. And I know that you have had to work on that stuff. And we're coming from different places, but as your friend and as someone who was watching you suffer and watching people actively deny what was very obvious, I just wonder with 2020 hindsight, if you're somebody who suspects mold and you're listening to this or you're looking for guidance, like what would you have done differently? What were the signs? Because all the information on mold is good, but and I want to get there. I want to do more than one episode, but
Hmm.
I, if we were going to help somebody who's like in it right now and they don't know, like what would you
Yeah.
say look for? Or what would you warn them about?
Yeah, definitely. I would not advise cleaning it up. I mean, it's hard because there could be a surface level, just a little corner, like you have a bookshelf up against an exterior wall and there was a little condensation. There's like a little bit there, like that's probably not going to be a problem. If you see a little bit though, like you want to investigate. One of the first things I did after you told me to get the heck out of there was I opened up some walls. So we had this tongue and groove wood paneling inside, interior siding. So it was pretty easy to just like take one piece out, or you could safely cut into your drywall or whatever you have. Looking behind the wall to see if you have something in there. Um, Air
Crawl space.
testing, yeah, crawl space, like anything like the attic, um utility rooms, like anywhere that you can kind of get behind and really see and just get to the root, and check, like, are things dry. You can get a moisture meter for, like, not too expensive moisture meter at a hardware store or something that would poke into, like, it's going to leave holes in your walls, but it's worth it. And it'll tell you your moisture level. Like if it's above a certain percentage, that tells you you have a problem. Um, those are cheap. You know, you can get cheap mold tests like at hardware stores, a little petri dish thing that you put
Okay.
out and you send in. Um, that doesn't really tell you a lot because it doesn't tell you how much you have,
Hmm.
but it will tell you what strains you have. Like if you're, you know, people talk about black mold, which what they're referring to as the species Stachybotrys, which is toxic at any level. So like you could, you know, if you
Kind of
send in a
stop.
test and it comes back Stachybotrys, you're like, okay, we know we have a problem. For us, that wasn't helpful because it gave us a few species of mold, but it didn't tell, like we already knew we had a problem.
And to repeat this, when you discovered the mold crawling up the walls and you told me I have a metallic taste in my mouth, you had no histamine responses. You weren't sneezing, you weren't coughing.
Correct.
These were
Which is
more
what I was looking for. I was looking for that, like, yeah, cough. My husband did. He ended up having a sinus infection.
that's
Um,
right. I forgot.
Although he had been at like a big training for his job in another town, like with a lot of people. So we thought, oh, maybe he just brought a cold back
Right.
from that. You know, so it's like hard to know, but like it just kept getting worse and worse and worse.
But you were having muscle
So
pain, you were having stomach pain,
yeah,
you were
yeah,
having were you having
both of us were,
headaches?
yeah. Yeah, yeah, headaches, gut, you know, discomfort, like appetite loss.
And again, I want to remind everybody this was over the course of a couple of weeks.
Yeah, yeah,
This was quick.
yeah, 2, 3, 4 weeks
Yeah.
before, I mean, two or three before we really started seeing symptoms. Um, it took a little more clarity, more time to get clarity on those and really understand, oh, this isn't just stress.
You know
But
what really when it really hit me was when you went into the old cabin with a full like Ebola style bodysuit and gas mask, like with the
mhm,
or
yeah,
respirator, whatever.
yeah, had to.
That's yeah, that's when I was like, oh my gosh. And
Yeah, and I did all that alone. You know, because you have to. I was like, what do? We don't just leave all our stuff in the house. Like anything that can be cleaned, let's pull it out and clean it. Which we waited for a mold inspector to tell us, okay, yeah, let's start doing that. And they came in, a remediation company came in and fogged with like an ammonia type. Ammonia is a really good mold killer. So they fogged, you know, kind of like how you would with insect infestation. So the fog can kind of go everywhere. Um, that was enough to kind of knock down some of the active growth. It's not like a complete cure all. Um, but it was after that point that we started going in and like bagging up our clothes, taking them to the laundry, washing them with, we used ammonia because we were on well water with no chlorine. You don't want to use ammonia with tap water, city water, but, or some people use borax, like whatever. There's processes to like anything that can go through the washing machine, probably salvageable. We had spray bottles with a 50-50 water ammonia mix to spray on like, um, anything out of the kitchen, like dishes, non-porous things. Yeah, this is like every single item you own has to be like wiped down thoroughly. Every little pen and pencil you like, every little tool you have, every
which is why you had the bonfire.
cord, like yeah. So a lot, you know, books, audios, like anything,
Right, I
papers.
forgot about
Oh,
that.
this is the book I was reading, The Living by Annie Dillard. It was a copy my mom had given me. And so after you told me to leave and I got on a plane, I went to my parents to see the doctor and like to just get out of the environment for a week. And I brought my book with me because I was in the
That's
middle of it.
oh my god.
And it had I have photos of this. Within a few
I
days of
have the
being at my
photo.
parents', the mold on the edge of the book, like
Yep.
where the pages meet, started growing.
Yep.
Like it hadn't been there before. So this is just like showing this cross contamination and how it's possible. I'm so glad that happened because it really showed me evidence that like you can't just take stuff out of there and like pretend like just because you can't see it or smell it, like it's especially on books and stuff like that. So
Well, I'm
um
a big repeater, so I just want to repeat this for everybody. So not only did this happen in a couple of weeks, but like she said at the beginning, you were blessed to have it be visible.
Yeah.
because a lot of people have all of a sudden strange symptoms and they never have the benefit of it growing in books and on walls. And I almost feel like it really was this like gift so that you could talk to people and teach people and like help them, because there really isn't help out there. There's not a lot. There's a doctor, you said Dr. Schumacher.
Yeah, Dr. Shoemaker, and that's a website, survivingmold.com, which is like pretty overwhelming if you're in the state I was.
Yeah.
But there is a lot of good information there. There's also if you just search mold in any podcast app, certain things will come up. That was the most like finding podcasts. Whether it was there's a couple by mold inspectors where they talk about building stuff. There's several about health stuff with like medical type people, and then there's also just certain people sharing their own account of their experience. And I found that so helpful because I could just listen. I'm not like reading on a computer feverishly. I could just listen to these podcasts and like feel like I'm kind of connecting with someone, even though
Mm,
we're not, but
yeah.
have that human connection and get that information. So yeah, anyone that suspects mold or is curious, like I would highly recommend just searching those up and finding some of those podcasts.
So if you knew then when this was all happening in the fall of 2023 and you knew better the people that you were dealing with in terms of their ignorance and their sort of willful ignorance about it, what would you have done differently, like knowing what you know now? Like how would you have
Yeah,
handled it for yourself differently?
it's a good question because I one of the things just personally that I was working on at the time was like releasing control. And I remember like telling these guys, "Hey, don't we need some ventilation down here? Like this is the rainforest. Don't we need like some fans or they put a couple little vents in, but it was like so inadequate." Um and they kept telling me no. Like several times we had this conversation. They kept telling me no, we don't think so, or no, we'll wait and see. And they weren't telling me no in like a defiant way. It was just kind of not a priority to them. They didn't realize, and I didn't realize, to be fair, like none of us realized how bad it could get, how and that quickly.
Right.
And I have a construction management background, not residential, but still, like I've been around like some stuff like this. I'm uh, owned a home before that had ventilation and like in the crawl space, so I'm not just like coming up pulling things out of my butt. Um, I part of me regrets not like putting my foot down then, but at the same time it was part of this whole, and this is like a whole another episode, but part of this personal growth thing of like releasing control and not being the project manager on every single day
Right.
uh, of my life. And so I also wish, probably the thing I wish more is that I would have just got out of there as soon as I saw that mold growing in early September. I wish I would have. I wish I would have lived in a bigger town that had, like, I had to fly in a mold inspector from Anchorage to Juneau because there was like one, and like they were too busy to come. So anyway, I if I was in like Texas or Florida or whatever, somewhere in the lower 48 where there are people,
Yeah.
I would hire a mold inspector like immediately.
Right. Because
It can be expensive, but
what did they ultimately
yeah.
say? Because I remember we didn't even talk about this yesterday. I remember them being hired and coming. What was their
Mhm.
determination of the property?
They said you need to completely gut the first floor. It was a two-floor cabin. Completely gut the first level to the studs and treat the studs, remove any visible mold, whether it's like completely replace that stud with a new 2x4 or use like a wire brush to kind of grind down or sand down that surface area. Spray with this really intense, antifungal killer, and let it all dry and fog it again, and then retest and then rebuild. That was the protocol. So
And this would
basically
have
got everything except the bones, and then yeah.
And this would have taken months, if not a year, probably to do this properly, correct?
It could have been quick if you would pay for the labor.
Right.
It could have been,
Like
I
three
mean,
months.
there's one company in Juneau that does this work, and they were booked out. But then it was winter, and they told us, "Oh, winter time we're not as busy, so that could be a good time." It just was like super expensive, and by the time you're looking at remediating like a 70-year-old cabin, uh, what's the cost benefit of like just starting fresh.
Well,
So
and I just want to bring this back again too, because we've been talking for about 44 minutes, and my idea was that we could maybe talk for an hour, get out what we can get, because it's such a big story. I mean, we could talk about this a lot.
yeah, yeah,
But I think, again, thinking about who might be listening, like there was just a question in the live, did insurance cover any of it? Which I
that's a
want to get.
great question. Yeah,
Yeah, I want
I,
I
I can
want
quickly address it.
to do it.
So I had a renter's policy. I've always had a renter's policy everywhere I live because it's pretty affordable and it could be a good deal. Um, They have mold exclusions. So if you call and say, yes, I've had mold and all our stuff's ruined, they will say, sorry, we have an exclusion for that. If you can say this was a water damage issue, they might cover it. Also for like the property itself, the nonprofit has an insurance policy. That was out of my wheelhouse, but I'm saying no, they did not cover any of it. I don't know that they pursued a
It,
claim, but
you
there
know,
are there are lots of mold exclusions in most policies.
I
So
used to
yeah,
work in insurance, and I will say that insurers are very good about exclusions. Anytime you
yeah,
purchase any policy, look at exclusions because you might
yeah,
need to get some kind of supplemental. But the reason I wanted to go to that about the mold specialist who came in is that I remember you doing that and being so excited, and I'm thinking because your employers, and I say this not about them in particular, but because I've seen this over and over in the public where people are developing illness. They're having neurological symptoms. They're having tachycardia. They're having muscle pains. They're having memory loss. They're having headaches. Like they're becoming debilitated slowly in front of you. And they're like, do I have Lyme? Do I have MS? Like, am I going crazy? Do I have bipolar disease? Because the emotional stuff can be really. And then on top of that, you have, so it's because it's hard to detect, it's hard to know. That's why Libby wanted to go over the testing and all this other stuff. But then you have people, even when a remediator comes and they write a report that says, yeah, down to the studs, like this is effed up, and they did the whole camp, I think, too. There were other results. And even still, with a mold specialist, and this does not surprise me, the people in charge said, nope, we're not doing it. Deny, deny, deny. And so I think that the element of like you're crazy or you're overreacting, I've seen it so much with people. I think it's a really important thing to hit on because you're not necessarily going to be supported in this journey. And to be able to recognize this stuff, which I think is why talking to you is important. Like, what was it actually like in real time? What was the response of people? I can say from my perspective in life, that is a common response. Just spray it with
very common.
vinegar. You're being sensitive when the truth is you could end up in full organ failure in the hospital.
Right. Yeah, it's really common, and even within a family. I mean, I've seen a lot of stories that, oh, my husband thinks it's fine, but I'm just like dying here, and that it's validating for me to, of course, I feel sorry for these people experiencing. I'm so grateful that my husband's been on board with this, even though he didn't get as sick as I did. He's still, still experiencing issues, and it's still something we're working through. I mean, we got to move completely out of the town. Like, can't live in the rainforest anymore. Like, got to go to the desert, kind of
Right.
thing, which is also common.
In a
But
year and
yeah,
in a
it's
year and a
so
half, this led to you also
yeah,
losing your job and your house and yeah.
yeah, yeah, a lot, a lot, a lot. I mean, it's worse than a house fire because a house fire is quick. Like, not to diminish the trauma of that. I like that's a big fear of mine my whole life.
Yeah.
But like house fire is quick. Everyone understands. Like, probably someone will set up a GoFundMe for you, and insurance will cover it, no questions asked. Like, there's a lot more support, and you don't have to make any decisions, and like the time is like that, you don't have to wait like to see, oh, what are their test results from the, it's a quicker, and so you don't have this prolonged extended trauma period that really is almost as damaging as the physical, the mycotoxins themselves. um but yeah, the going through it alone, I'm so grateful to have had family who understand, and friends like you who understand enough to be like, wow, this is not just a little thing. Like, even if you don't totally understand, like just being open to how serious it is. Um, my my best, she's like a celebrity yoga girl, Rachel, what's her last name? Bresser. Anyway, her podcast, From the Heart, is was like my greatest companion last winter, because she went through mold in their house in Aruba, and like the whole thing, and she would describe week after week on her podcast what she was going through, and like a lot of the stuff I talked about today, it was like the first time I'd heard any real person say it. Like, yeah, maybe I'd read it in some articles or something, but um, yeah, the isolation of going through something all by yourself, um, horrible. Like, makes it exponentially worse. So,
Yeah.
um, yeah, I'm grateful that to have supportive family, and because I haven't been able to work yet. Like, I'm just kind of getting into that mode of like possibly being able to work part time after a year and a half. So I don't know, if I didn't have that kind of support, it's who knows where I would have ended up. I mean, it got so bad. Like, I know I look pretty like normal and healthy now. Like, I it got so bad
It did.
that I would have been probably like walking off into the desert. I don't know.
I mean, again, just as a witness, as your friend, I mean, because you just got back from Costa Rica. We haven't even gotten to that. Just so you know, we're almost to an hour. I don't mind talking longer, but if we want to pause, or I just
Yeah, we
want
can stop anytime. Yeah,
I'll let you know when we're at
my
an
heart
hour.
hurts a little bit
This is what I'm
going
worried
over
about.
this.
I'm
Yeah,
still I still feel very protective of your health, and I mean this sincerely. Like, let's not push, because we can talk again.
yeah, yeah,
But I know for me, something that was really scary, like really it scared me, it freaked me out, was obviously, I mean, I know it freaked you out too, but was when you finally did leave the camp. And that was freaking traumatic. You had to pack up your car, and you had to drive and take a ferry, and you were driving through Canada and like on your own while you're not feeling well. And I remember when you said, I'm having, like, I think you called it a tick. And
yeah.
you called me, or you sent me a video. I think you sent me a video, and I was so terrified for you, because I thought things were going to get better when you left, and it just had degraded your system so much that before you finally made the choice to go to Costa Rica to get some specialty treatment, which I do think we need to do a separate talk on that so you can give people a
Hmm.
little hope about it. But I mean, you were not functioning. Like,
No,
you
it
were like
was,
you
yeah,
were like having seizures, basically.
yeah, yeah. I was having seizures and involuntary movements, like all day long, and that was, I really think that most of the mycotoxins were out of my body at that point, and that it had just ravaged everything. There's such a focus with mold treatment, and you'll see this if you go to Dr. Shoemaker's website. There's such a focus on binders and get the mold out, get the mold out, which is important. But then what about what happens after that? Like, the gut needs to be healed. My gut was
Well, you're
like
depleting,
rabid. I mean,
depleting,
like,
depleting,
yeah,
depleting. Yeah.
my vitamins were depleted, like my vitamin mineral, like I'm still getting that caught up because I wasn't absorbing anything. I was taking all these supplements, and the supplements ended up like ultimately adding to my toxic load. So, yeah, there's definitely some post detox care that's really, really important that I didn't really get in time. It's so hard to find a doctor that, knows how to treat you. But I will say, because not just because this is an acupuncture podcast, but because it's the truth. and it's what I tell people if I'm giving advice about mold recovery. Acupuncture, I think, has been the most helpful, is the most accessible, affordable, and the most like holistic, no side effects. Like it is the number one thing that I would recommend to people that are, even if you suspect you've got mold illness, like just, you don't, before you go get a test or anything like that, like acupuncture. I mean, you gave me a treatment in March, and I hadn't slept well for, over 6 months. And then I slept for like 2 weeks straight. I couldn't,
I
I
remember.
mean, just as one, yeah. So that was super powerful. I had seen a couple other people before that, just here at onesie twosies. And I've ramped that up like since February. I've been seeing somewhat where some acupuncturist and some down wherever I happen to be at the time pretty regularly, and that's been so helpful because you can walk in, you can just say mold, and they're like, oh, okay, and they check all your pulses, and like they
Long
can see,
pulse,
they check your
belly.
like all the stuff, and get a real time, like you don't have to go get blood tests, and all that stuff. It gets like I'm still paying off medical bills. So it's that would be one big takeaway, and one big hope is like there's, even in the smallest towns in America, you can find acupuncturists, usually more than one, and
Absolutely.
it's,
Yeah.
I think, really effective and helpful and calming, and
Yeah. I
because
want
the
to
nervous
speak to
system is like, yeah,
I
so
want to I
yeah,
want to speak to that on a couple fronts, and then yeah, I think we should kind of summarize a little bit what we've talked about so that we can come back, because I after this I know we have to do another one.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I'll
I want
badger
to
you.
too.
Okay, good. Um, but I remember giving you that treatment because when I came out to Alaska, just to give a little bit more to that story for human interest, because I was kind of running around the country for my life. Like we had parallel things melting in our lives at the same time. So I had my kid with me. I whatever. If you know my TikTok story, you know. If you don't, check it out or ask. I'll talk about it. I think I have a podcast on it. But I was basically just jumping from place to place, trying to find a way for my son and I to have shelter, for me to have a job, for us to be okay. And I got invited by you to Alaska because an acupuncturist, herbalist, Chinese doctor that you knew there was retiring, looking to retire, move. And it's Alaska, so there's not a lot of people to take over. And you said, I think this might work. So I flew out, and this is how I met you in person. And I got to witness you kind of in the middle of all of this. Like you'd already burned all your stuff, you'd already moved out. I was still kind of with you and trying, what's going on? Are you going to be okay? I get out there exhausted with my kid. I'm trying to put him in school. It's the middle of February in the Alaskan rainforest. So we managed to get the paperwork done and have a session together before I left. And what I remembered thinking was, I know acupuncture is crazy effective. It just organizes your body. If nothing else, it gives you a moment, a day, a week of the body being in line as much as it can be, and giving you a little bit more of a sense of baseline so you can kind of assess. And I knew that you were not well. I knew it was serious. And so I just wanted to give you the biggest bang for your buck. Like, if I'm going to do this, let's mark it. So it was a simple treatment. I think it was like 6 needles, but it was about kind of regulating the mind and the will, like the mission and the will to do the mission. And I knew it would help with anxiety. I knew it would help with sleep. And you were like, holy crap, it was so effective. And I think, first of all, I'm grateful that we got together, because I think how bad a shape I was in and how bad a shape you are, like, I think it's amazing we did that. I've learned so much from you. I was glad to be able to offer a little bit, but I'm not surprised. Like when you said it yesterday, it made me feel good that the acupuncture, not mine, but all of it has helped you so much. But it really is because, like I said to you and others, like I'm not putting anything in your body. All I'm doing is aligning it. Needles are conductors of energy. So all I'm doing is putting the energy in alignment. And is it going to take the mold out? No. Is it the ultimate solution? No. But it's a huge helper mentally, physically, emotionally to get you there. For some things, it can fix it. For molds, it can't. The other thing I want to say as a medical provider and in your experiences in encountering everyday people and medical people is most medical people, including myself, do not know enough about mold, mold poisoning, mold toxicity, and the impacts of mold on people. I knew enough to know what I didn't know. And I knew enough to know that it can kill people. So that's why I did what I did. But I never presented myself as, unless someone says they are a mold expert, I think my point is keep looking. Like that's kind of what I'm trying to get out of this here is take yourself seriously because other people probably won't. Know that it is hard to get information, but it's out there. Like that's kind of my takeaway of what I would want people to know from this and from your
I
experience.
would
Because
agree. Yeah, and
watching you suffer was no fun.
even if they do say they're a mold expert, they're not a you expert. You're the you
Right.
expert. So it's like
Yes.
becomes this partnership of working together to heal
Yeah.
you. So that's important too. Which is
Yeah.
like, oh man, I just wanted to give someone my whole existence and have them take care of me. And ultimately, by the end, we can talk about that next time. I did kind of get that, but it, you're never. It's always a partnership. Like someone can give you whatever treatment, any of the best treatments of in the world, and if you're not there in some kind of indescribable way, believing that it's going to work and doing your part, then it can still fall flat. So it's always a partnership, I think, in any kind of healing.
Yeah, and we actually started yesterday talking about this, so I think it's kind of funny we're going to end talking about this, but I think it's a good point to end on is that mold is inherently a difficult, sticky, tricky thing, not just in terms of what it is, but also the information out there, the experts out there. It's tricky, and it really takes some exposure, which I'm sure hopefully this will expose even one person, right, who might encounter this.
Yeah.
But the illnesses can look mysterious. The solutions are not easy. And I think in a culture where we're used to someone going, take a pill, here's the surgery, we'll cut it out. That doesn't exist with mold. Mold is a journey. And we haven't gotten to Libby's journey in terms of the healing part. It sounds like we're going to do that though, because I think that's a really important part for people who might be sick or who have gotten sick.
Yeah.
But this isn't a take a pill thing. This isn't a, oh, I found the person, they said it's mold, and now here's the treatment and it's done. This is a very complex, tricky thing. And it's why I think conversations like this, even though they're hard to have because it is all over the place, it's so important. Like education is so important.
It is. And my heart doesn't hurt anymore, just so you know.
Oh,
That's
good.
like it's not a it's been kind of like a learning to listen to my body and like learning to like, okay, what is this? It could just be telling me to take a breath. I mean, it's like it might be that simple, but chest pain, oh my gosh, like get to a cardiologist right now, like the mindset.
Yeah.
So
Panic.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And I think that's what both of us are here to do. What I think our intention here is to shed light where there isn't a lot, to acknowledge that there isn't a lot, and to say you don't need to be fearful of this, but be aware. And if you happen to encounter it or you know someone who might be, do not be afraid to speak up and confront it because you're not going to get that support from the gallery.
Hmm.
It's just not there other than places like this, these random little
Yeah,
places. Yeah. I definitely want to talk to you again because I feel like we
yeah.
barely talked about anything.
Let's do it. Let's do it. It was a
Okay.
good overview, and it's really helpful for me to revisit these things, especially from the place I'm at now. So
Yeah,
it's
how are you now? Like, can
yeah.
we end with how you, I mean, don't you, obviously we can't go
Hmm.
into all of it, but how are you today?
I'm functioning. I can eat. I can poop. Like, I mean, like those are big deals.
Yeah.
Um, I'm not on a ton of supplements. I'm still. That's kind of what I'm still figuring out is I do need a little bit of supplementation here and there, but like I'm making art. I'm doing things that I've been trying to do for months, if not years, and finally able. Like I'm gathering nettles out of the yard. I got a bunch in the dehydrator right now. I'm walking the dogs every day. Like I'm alive and like I'm doing the things that I want to do. I'm working towards an income. That's important.
Yeah.
That's really important.
Yeah.
I feel like that's kind of an end point for me. Like if you look at this, like it's a project and like the start of the project was this. mold exposure, and the end of it is like getting back to sustaining myself financially. So that's a big goal that I'm working on, but I'm
As
like
far as you
making
know,
actual steps towards it.
is it possible to totally heal from mold as far as you know?
Yeah, I think so. And everyone's a little different. In my case, I probably will always be sensitive to it. Like I can walk into a room and know, oh, in that corner over there, you've got a problem.
Yep.
Or like, thrift store shopping for me might be out. I'm gonna
Right.
just say that, like, just because you never know, like, what kind of stuff, like walking into a thrift store, even walking into bookstore, like a used bookstore, I can't really do that anymore. So there's just things like that that but my system's cleaned out. I can sense that and I can like move away from it quickly
Yeah.
before it becomes an issue.
You're more in the process of
So
rebuilding maybe than the
mhm,
detoxing and
yeah,
getting.
rebuilding, replenishing, rebalancing. Yeah,
Well, definitely when we talk next time, I mean, we can talk about whatever because we can talk anytime we want, but I want to talk about the healing process for you because you just got through that, which was really intense. And I think, um, oh shoot, what was the other thing I was going to say? I don't remember.
there's a lot.
Yeah,
There's a lot we can go into. Yeah, yeah, and
there's a
we will.
lot. Oh, I know. Oh, I just lost it again.
Memory loss was a big one for me. Oh my gosh, that's bringing it back.
Yeah,
Like
well,
just little stuff that you take for granted, like being able to like remember and have an attention span. And I mean, I'm not perfect by any means, but yeah, I feel like
I'm
I'm able
really
to function in the world.
I'm
So
really, honestly, Libby, I'm really proud of you. We've both been through something at the same time, which is, I think, how I'm able to honor it so well. We've been through something that's invisible. Like we went through total destruction. Like you said, if it was a house fire or a tornado, um, people, right, everybody comes together. But when it's something
hmm
that people can't see with their own eyes and it happens individually, to go through that alone is an added trauma.
yeah,
And
big
I'm really
time.
proud of you for everything you've done. I mean, I know you had good support from family, from your husband, your parents, like, and I'm so grateful for that. But I'm just really proud of you for recognizing yourself and healing to this point because it was scary. It was scary. I mean, I still worry
Well,
about
thanks
you.
for being my friend through it, and I mean, really, like listening, being present. That's pretty big. So
Yeah, same,
yeah, I
same.
credit you for a lot.
Same, same, same. I love you. So,
I love you too.
okay. All right, so we'll talk again. Ask questions. Libby is on Patreon, so you can ask there too, and I'll monitor that stuff. But we'll be back. I'm not sure when, but ask questions. Share the
Yeah,
episode. Yeah. Somebody who maybe has
thanks.
mysterious pains and stuff. Thanks.
Yeah, people can DM me or what. Like I'm
So
not
what's your website again?
opposed to. You
Mental
can
Cramps?
you can go to mentalcramps.com or libbysterling.com. They both direct to the same place. So yeah,
Awesome.
I'm more than, I can't like solve everybody's problems, but I can definitely direct, and um so you're
Resources.
not alone.
That is for sure. Not if you know us, you're not. All right. Thank you for talking to me.
Thanks for talking to me. This has been
Yeah.
fun.
We'll do it again soon.
Until next time, I'll
Okay.
be back.
Oh my God, The Last of Us. What day
Oh
is it?
yeah.
Is it out tomorrow? Oh, I'm watching.
Oh, is it? I'm still a couple episodes behind, but
I won't, I
I'm in
won't.
season 2, so
It's good. It's
yeah.
good. Okay.
Okay.
Bye, honey. Talk to you
Bye.
later.
Okay.
You got poked.